Talking about chapter 21, section 3, once more, the big idea is that supply and demand interact and that price is determined from the demand on a product. And that these studied, they can be measured, ergo they can be predicted. And so that business doesn't have to be as risky as the guesswork that you might feel that it is. It can actually be scientific. You can go into a business and be reasonably assured of your success based on careful research. It's not a guessing game. So as we learn about these terms, you see that they all relate to supply, since we're going to be learning about the supply curve. Now, the first question, do you agree that producers should always provide a greater supply of a product than they think they will really need? Since I was obsessing about the Google Pixel when I bought this. By the way, Zelda's on my wallpaper. Anyway, that's why I got the Switch. But back to the Google Pixel. When I was obsessing about this, there was a supply problem from the very beginning. Google purposely did not make enough of these products to meet the demand. Now, why do you think that is? Why would they make fewer of these products than they were predicting the demand for that product to be? What's the advantage for them? Early on, when this first came out, let's say they made 1 million units. Well, let's say demand for the immediate released item was 2 million units. That means perhaps they can keep demand high since supply is artificially low. Now, they could have easily made 2 million units, but they didn't. And so maybe that keeps demand at a higher rate. Maybe it's a good business strategy. So really businesses can do this any way they want. Let's say that they project demand for this product in the first 3 months to be 2 million units. So they make 1 million. Maybe that works out better for their profit margin. Think about supply. Supply, the definition is the quantities of a good or service that producers are willing to sell at all possible market prices. The lowest this phone ever got, I'm going to guess and say it was about $500. Now they stopped making them. In fact, they don't even make this phone anymore, and it came out in fall of 2016. Less than 2 years later, it's already off production. Why? Because they have now sold all the units they projected. Sales have essentially equalized. They've now sold all the ones. People have bought all the ones that they want, and now they've discontinued production. And so supply for this has gone down to essentially zero. But supply, once more, is the amount of goods and services that producers are able and willing to sell at any price. So when this phone first came out, well, I waited a few months for the first price drop, but when it first came out, it was rather expensive. And then after the first price drop, it was a little less expensive. The final price drop put it down to about $500, and then they discontinued it altogether. Well, supply of the Pixel means everything from the original price down to the lowest price was the supply of that item. It is the opposite of demand, because the law of supply states that suppliers will normally offer more for sale at higher prices and less at lower prices. The idea, if you're making anything to sell, is that you want to sell the most of your product at the highest price possible. You only market to close out when you need to get rid of them and make room for a new product. So that's why the MSRP on a product is the manufacturer's suggested retail price. That's the price point that the manufacturer has estimated will generate the most profit for the retailer. Eventually, retailers, to generate sales, will offer discounts off the MSRP. So the MSRP is the highest price point because that's what suppliers want to sell that item at. And they will. They'll sell X amount of items at that price point. But eventually they're going to need to lower the cost to move their product. And so their hope is they'll sell as many as they can at the highest price point. So as prices go up, so do the supply of goods. As prices go down, so do the supply of goods. Meaning, at the higher the price, the higher the supply. It also means the higher the price of an item, the more the manufacturer wants to make of that item because they want to move it at that price point. But as the item goes down, the supply is going down. You know, the all-time peak of manufactured Google Pixel phones was towards the beginning. They were making as many as they could because they were selling them like hotcakes. 3 months ago, the supply was at an all-time low because demand was at an all-time low, as well as price was at an all-time low. This can be charted, and this is watched closely by any private business worth their salt on a supply schedule. A supply schedule is a table showing the quantities supplied at different possible prices. So Google projected to make 2 million units and sell them for about $700 a piece. I don't know the real price, but theoretically $700 a piece, 2 million units. But they also planned, say by February of 2018, to introduce their final price drop down to 500. And they knew at that point they would only be making about 100,000 units because at that point demand had essentially fizzled out. Now they're pushing the Pixel 2, the Pixel 3 will be out probably by October. Now, this is an interesting question. How much do you think a diamond's worth? To be fair, what is a diamond? Would you call it a luxury or a necessity? So raise your hand if you think luxury. Obviously it's a luxury, right? One of my best friends just got engaged. You know, of course, the traditional picture of the girl's hands all over Facebook. Now everybody's super excited. You know, they're getting married soon. It's going to be great. Well, she got a diamond. Why? Well, because that's traditional. You get a diamond engagement ring. You don't have to. You can get something different. But it is often the custom to buy a lady a diamond engagement ring. I'm victim to it too. You know, okay, we were going to get engaged. She got a diamond engagement ring. You know, I could have got her something else, but hey, that's the tradition. Who am I to fight custom? So I got her a diamond engagement ring. I understood, however, that diamonds only have value because we ascribe value to it. It actually has no inherent value. Gold, at least, is a great conductor of electricity. Diamonds are a very efficient cutting tool, but in terms of decorative use, the only reason they cost so much is because we buy it. The only reason it's priced so high is because people will pay that for it. So, diamonds cost more than water. Water is essential to survival, yet currently water's cheap. What's the difference between the two? I'm sorry? Part is marketing, yeah. I mean, you want the diamond. This is not diamond, it's gold, but you want the diamond. So good marketing. What else? How about scarcity? What about supply? Which do you think there is a higher supply of, water or diamonds? Water. Water is relatively plentiful. Maybe not someday, but currently it is relatively plentiful, certainly compared to the diamond. So it's not a necessity to get into the relationship between scarcity and demand. So the law of demand, that is special. We can chart these through tables and graphs, can show also the law of supply. So what do these graphs and tables look like? The first one I want to talk about is a supply curve. That is the upward sloping line that shows the quantities supplied at each possible price. So we know the higher the price, the higher the supply. And so the upward sloping curve in a supply curve shows the higher the price, the higher the supply. Higher the price, higher the supply. We even go into business. We go into business to make money. Let's be real. You know, I would love someday when I retire to work at some type of outdoor shop. I don't know, take people kayaking or something. Some fun little thing, maybe be a mountain bike guide, I don't know, some kind of outdoor guy. Well, that's great. I'm not going to volunteer my time though. My time is my own. I'll sell my time. Why? Because I want to make money doing it. Ideally, I want to make money doing something I love. You know, Victoria wants to have a catering business. And someday, 10 years from now, I'll call up Victoria's catering business and say, hey, you want to do our prom? And she's going to go, sure, $1,000. Okay, fair enough. She's going to do prom because she thinks that's cool. That's what she wants to do. She loves catering events. I'm going to solicit her services because I like food and we got to have food for prom, so it's going to be great. It's a win for both of us. But she's not just going to do food for prom because she loves food. She's going to ultimately do it to make money. Because who knows? She might have children by that point. She might have relatives that are working for her company by that point. You never know. But she'll have to make money. Otherwise, she can't do it. And so the profit motive is going to push her to make money above cost. Because here's the thing. Let's say, so we're trying to figure out, Victoria and I are haggling over prices. And she's going to say, well, I can do it for $10 a head. That's a fair price for a catering event. $10 a head, okay. So let's say I call up Hannah Flanagan's. I know they'll do it for $7 a head. So I'm going to call Victoria back and say, hey, look, Hannah Flanagan said they can do food for prom for $7 a head. Well, she's going to tell me, that's great. You should probably go with Hannah Flanagan's. Why? That means she's losing potentially a big contract. But on the flip side, if she undersells and goes $6 a head, she knows she's going to lose money. So she's got to keep that price point in order to make money. Even though she loves food, she's got to make money. And so she's got to keep her profits above her cost. Otherwise, she goes out of business. Now, Hannah Flanagan's might be able to run it at $7 because they have a different supply schedule than she does, or they have a different way of doing things. Whatever it is, her price point is $10. Otherwise, she loses money. Now, let's say we work it out. I go, okay. Turns out Hannah Flanagan's food is not as good as yours in terms of quality, so we're going to go with the $10 a head. Awesome. It's a win for Victoria. It's a win for me. Better food. She gets the money. Now, what is she going to do with that money? So let's say out of the $1,000, let's say it actually cost her $500. Well, now you're thinking, wait a second. If she's making double off of what she's producing, why couldn't she have done it for $7? Well, here's the thing. What's she doing with that $500? Well, she's probably got a shop set up. She can't legally run this out of her house. So she has to have a location. That means rent. She can't feasibly do all the catering for Henderson County by herself. She has employees. So after all the bills have been paid, her business is making $100 off this prom. So she's now made $100. Her business, that's after bills, after everything. What's she going to do with that money? Well, here's what I've seen bad businesses do with that money. She could splurge. She goes, sweet, I made $100. I'm going to buy this cute outfit. Okay, that's one thing. Yay, lots of cute outfits. Well, okay, that's one thing. It would be a lot smarter to take that $100, invest it back into her people, back into her business, space. Let's say someday she's going to want to expand beyond just Henderson County. I mean, you've all seen this, and it's exciting when it happens. Like, my favorite Mexican restaurant in town is Papa's and Beer. I mean, oh my gosh, it's just great. I can't help it. It's not healthy. I love it. So, Papa's and Beer, good food. They have more than one location now. Did you know that? They have a place in Asheville. I think they even have a place in South Carolina. They've done that. Why? Well, because the more of those big fat burritos they make, the more money they make ultimately. And that's their goal. They have a profit mode, just like anyone else. So maybe as her catering business takes off, she wants to open up a location in Greenville. Yay! Maybe she wants to buy new equipment. So here's the thing, to do food for the prom, and let's see, what type of food would you make?
Mostly Ukrainian, probably.
Okay, so mostly Ukrainian food. So let's say you have a small oven. You start out with a small oven. Well, that limits the amount of food you can make. I mean, theoretically, that maximizes production at a certain point. Bigger oven, more production. More production, more food. So she's going to want better equipment. More workers, obviously, too. Two's better than one. If she's got two people doing the job, she can now double her output as well. Of course, she could keep the money. I mean, she could say, I've expanded to the degree that I want to expand. I'm going to keep any excess profit from here. I'm good. I don't need to expand anymore. That's fair, too. All right. Her business will be driven by market supply. That means the total of all the supply schedules of all of the businesses that provide the same good or service. So Victoria is going to think very carefully before she starts this catering company. The big question is where? Is she going to do it in Henderson County? Is she going to do it in Greenville? She's going to do a lot of careful market research. Because guess what? I don't want to burst your bubble. There's other catering companies in Henderson County. Now, are there any other Ukrainian catering companies that you know of?
Not to my knowledge.
Not to your knowledge. So that might be your niche. That might be it. You know, maybe there's a demand for Ukrainian catering in Henderson County. We do have a large Ukrainian population here, so it's possible that it could be successful. But before she commits, she's going to be a smart businesswoman and do the research. You know, is there theoretically a larger Ukrainian community per se in Greenville? I don't know. Could she make it? Maybe it's worth a shot. Maybe she tries it here and then decides to locate where there's a larger market supply to increase her profit. So, it follows individual trends. Meaning, since she wants to make specifically Ukrainian food, she's catering to a specific market supply. Now, granted, the you and I's of the world might say, I'm not familiar with Ukrainian food, so I might say, hey, I'll give it a shot. You know, let's try it. And there might be enough of the me's in the world to say, let's try it, to give it a shot. And you might just be introducing Henderson County to Ukrainian food. You might just be that pioneer. And that's incredible. So again, it follows individual trends. I can't predict how her business would do. But the upward slope shows that she's going to try to sell her item as a smart businesswoman. She's going to try to sell her product at the highest possible price. So when I'm calling her up for prom, she might originally quote me at $12 a head, knowing that we can talk down to 10. She'd love to do prom at $12 a head because, again, that would generate more revenue. That would potentially lead to an extra $200. Here's the thing. The $100 of profit, what if that could be $300 of profit? That's 3 times the amount of investment that she can put back into her business, or 3 times the amount of outfits that she could buy. The most important factor in this is price. So When we're thinking about a specific Ukrainian catering business, we're dealing with a limited market supply. You know, who's the market for this? But here's where it gets really complicated. What if there's a competing Ukrainian catering company? They're making the same food as her company. That's where things get really tricky, right? So how do we figure that out? Well, now they're making the same food that assumes same quality. The only X factor is price. So what economics teaches us is I'm going to go with the cheaper company. Sorry, Victoria. She's small, she can't afford to keep her profit margins thin, so this company is going to basically bid her out of business. They're going to take up all the business in that market supply. They're going to push her out. She's going to have to find another place to do business. It's sad, it's cold, but that's how it works. So again, the most important influence when everything else is the same is price. If you were a business owner, what would you do with your profits? It's something you have to think about and consider very carefully. If you pay your workers better, maybe they're happier, maybe that increases output. If you invest in more equipment, again, maybe that's what you need. What happens when there are changes in supply? Different factors can cause increases and decreases in overall supply. Number one, the cost of the resources. Well, let's assume that anybody else going into business? We've picked on Bryce and Victoria an awful lot. Anybody else want to be brave and be an entrepreneur? Okay. Let's say Alan's going to open a bike shop. He likes mechanical stuff. So let's say he goes into some type of mechanical thing. So here's what he's got to deal with. Well, the price of parts go up every year. Price of bikes go up every year. Somehow they magically go up every year. So as the cost of the resources that he needs to do his business go up, guess what? Supply goes up. Why? Well, because Specialized just released their new stump jumper. It looks amazing, and they're selling that sucker for a lot of money. Well, it's in Specialized's best interest to make lots of those bikes so that they can sell them at the highest possible price point. It also means that demand right now is not as high, so they're making lots of these products hoping to sell them, but with the understanding there'll be a price drop in a month or so. So when the price of a resource goes up, supply falls. Now this is where it gets a little trickier. Let's say, okay, Specialized released the new stump jumper. Let's say the cost of aluminum goes up. Well, that means it's going to cost them more to make each individual bike. Ergo, they're going to make less of those bikes. Productivity is a major factor in measuring supply. Productivity means the degree to which resources are being efficiently used to produce goods and services. Waste affects productivity. You know, last set of notes I ran off for U.S. history, I made 2 extra copies, just wanting extras. Well, that's sheets of paper, that's ink, that's staples that are wasted by the county. I didn't use them. I even ripped one up for illustration in first period. So that's a waste. That hurts efficiency. If I could go fully paperless in this classroom, that's less paper that we have to buy, ergo, that increases efficiency. Productivity. So when productivity increases, costs go down. When productivity decreases, costs go up. Henry Ford didn't invent the automobile. He made it cheaper. How did he make it cheaper? He invested in labor. He maximized efficiency in production. He made more cars with less money than anyone in the world had been able to previously. And that's why he's a household name. He emphasized productivity in production. Another one is technology. The methods or the processes used to make goods and services. Henry Ford was actually a technological innovator. when he developed the assembly line technique to manufacture the automobile in a cheaper way than had ever been done before. That was a new technology. It lowered the cost of production. It increased supply. Why? There were Model Ts rolling off the line like hotcakes, and people were buying them because they were cheaper than any competing automobile in the world. One is government policy. Why do you think the cheapest t-shirt in the world is not made in the United States? Why don't we make the cheapest? If we're the best country in the world, why can't we make the cheapest t-shirt? Yeah.
Because we have wage laws.
Right. We have minimum wage laws. So that's going to be one significant barrier to the world's cheapest t-shirt. I mean, really, like $4 a t-shirt, you got to pay some kid 10 cents to make that happen. You're not going to get that on $7.25 an hour. What else? What's another barrier? Why don't we have the cheapest t-shirt? We've already got to labor. There's more than that. What do you think, Bryce? Paying some kid 10 cents, we've established that. What else? Could there be any environmental factors in making a t-shirt? What happens if you dump dye into a stream? Is that good or bad?
Bad.
That's bad, right? So, do you think we have environmental laws here? What were you going to say, Alan?
Like buying the materials could be too expensive.
Ooh, materials could be more expensive, yes. Because maybe the supplier of those materials has to follow rules here that are going to keep those costs high. Maybe over there, let's assume over there that the company can dump all the dye they want in the rivers and no one cares in Malaysia. Let's assume that people can pay their workers 10 cents an hour and no one cares. That government policies. Sometimes government can restrict supply as well. Governments can certainly tax production of certain goods. And taxes have a relationship on supply of a product. Basically, higher taxes generally lower supply. The higher it costs to make a product, the fewer of them we're going to make. Lower taxes increase supply. The lower the tax, the lower the cost to make a product, the more of the product we're going to make. So the government is very involved in our economy. One way is through subsidies. A subsidy is a government payment to an individual, a business, or a group in exchange for certain actions. Let's say that you are going to be a corn farmer. That's your thing. You're super excited about growing corn someday. Been there, grew up with a garden. It's not that exciting, but maybe for my dad, he loves it. So you're going to grow corn. Yay. Well, if you're a big enough corn farmer, you can qualify for federal subsidies, meaning that someone is going to pay you to grow corn. Why? Well, you got to have corn. I mean, if you eat French fries, you're eating something made through corn oil. Certainly popcorn, certainly any product, cereal, often made from corn, cornbread, cornmeal. So, subsidies make it cheaper for you to do business. Meaning you're going to grow more corn, which is good for everybody. We've got to have corn. So when it lowers production cost, supply goes up. When subsidies go away, supply goes down. So here's the thing. Government shows up and they say, tell you what, we're going to pay you $100 a year to grow more corn. You go, sweet. What are you going to do with that money? Well, once more, here's your options. You can go buy a cute outfit. You know, imagine farmer in overalls with cuter overalls. I don't know. You can go pay your workers better. That might increase output. You could buy better equipment. Maybe you want to save up and get that fancy tractor. Who knows? With all the things you can do, it's going to inevitably translate to more corn, which is what our government wants, more corn. That's why they're paying you. So what is the expectation? Well, producers may adjust supply to meet expected demand. You know, the Wii U was a failure business-wise. It just was. Why? Because they made far more units than the actual demand. They overestimated the projected demand of the Wii U. And so they made too many of these things. They couldn't sell them. They had to lower the price significantly. It affected their profit margins. There were concerns that Nintendo was going to go out of business because of the Wii U. The Switch has really revitalized their company. Okay, the number of suppliers. This one's pretty obvious. The more suppliers you have, the more supply of your product. And what I'm talking about here are, for example, let's think about how the stapler is made. It's made primarily of aluminum, a little bit of rubber, and that's about it. The two items I need, aluminum and rubber. So oil and ore. So if the amount of oil producers goes up, there's going to be more staplers. If the amount of oil producers goes down, there'll be less staplers. It's that simple. It really is. So, the fewer oil producers, because by the way, rubber comes from oil. So the fewer oil producers, ergo, less oil, which translates to less staplers. Okay. So which of these has the greatest impact on supply? Short answer, they all have impacts on supply, but you can decide for yourselves which one you think is the best. Moving on. Yes, supply can be elastic. It's called supply elasticity. This means that it measures how the quantity of a good or service changes in response to price. Changes in response to a price. Well, number one, it depends on the speed in which producers can adjust supply to meet higher prices. Well, let's say that suddenly everyone wants a stapler. Oh my gosh, they're taking off. Check this out. Did you know that home flipping is at an all-time high? If you want a lucrative business, now is the time to get into house flipping. I mean, every day when I drive to work, I pass signs saying, "We will buy your crappy home at whatever price." Why? Because they want to flip it, and they know in Henderson County they can sell it, make lots of money. It's a lucrative business. And so as demand is going up, people are like chomping at the bit to get into that market. Everybody wants real estate right now. It's exciting, but it's also concerning for something we'll get into in a moment. So basically, elastic supply means homes. Inelastic supply means we can't easily add more when prices are high. So homes are a little tricky because to build a home is going to take a few months. So even if you know that the home market is booming, you can't just hop on a train and build more homes by tomorrow. So that's a relatively inelastic supply. So that's why you have everybody going, "We will buy your crappy home," because we're dealing with a limited supply of homes. They want to take your home, they want to fix it up, and they want to sell it at a profit. Elastic supply, that's something that we can run off more units of easily. So let's say that the price of frozen pizzas is going through the roof. Well, it's easy to make more frozen pizzas. Boom, run off more. Bam, you got frozen pizzas. Awesome. That's elastic supply. Okay, and which of the following would be hardest to increase quickly? Which do you think? You know, my guess would be gold. Like, okay, more beef, we grow more cattle. 6 months, we got more cattle, more beef. Water, well, you just got to find more water. Corn, okay, but gold, I don't know, it's a little more scarce.